The photo slipped from my fingers like sand, landing on the immaculately set Thanksgiving table between the crystal glasses and golden-rimmed plates. My daughter's eyes, so like my late husband's, held mine with a coldness I'd never seen before. "I'm taking over the company, Mom. The board has already voted. What the company needs now is a younger, more innovative vision." The words hit me like a physical blow, but decades of boardroom battles had taught me to keep my expression neutral. I looked down at the scattered photographs she'd presented me with, candid shots from my early days as CEO, newspaper clippings of our company's rise to prominence, all carefully arranged beside a typed contract with my daughter's elegant signature at the bottom. "Ellie," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "we should discuss this privately." My son-in-law, Mark, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. My grandson stopped mid-bite of turkey, sensing the tension. The Thanksgiving dinner I'd spent days preparing suddenly felt like a cruel setup. "There's nothing to discuss." Ellie's voice had that determined edge I recognized well. I'd taught her that tone. "The transition happens Monday. I wanted to tell you in person, with family around. I thought it would be easier. Easier." The word echoed in my mind as I looked at this stranger wearing my daughter's face. The same girl I'd rocked to sleep during thunderstorms. The same child who'd followed me around the office, playing with paper clips while I built our empire from nothing. I closed the box slowly, my arthritic fingers betraying my age. At 68, I was no longer the fierce dynamo who'd taken a struggling local business and transformed it into a national powerhouse. But I wasn't ready to be discarded either. "I hope success embraces you better than I embraced it," I said finally, rising from my chair. The room fell silent. My brother-in-law Victor, who had served as vice president since my husband died 12 years ago, raised his wine glass in a mock toast. "To new beginnings," he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. I'd never trusted Victor. He'd been circling my position like a vulture since the day after my husband's funeral, but I'd always been too strong, too connected, too damn good at my job for him to make a move. Now he'd found another way, through my own flesh and blood. As I excused myself from the table, claiming a sudden headache, I caught the flash of doubt in Ellie's eyes. Good. She should doubt. She had no idea what she was walking into. In my bedroom, I locked the door and finally allowed myself to break. The tears came hot and fast, staining the silk pillowcase I'd splurged on during a business trip to Shanghai. I'd missed Ellie's 16th birthday for that trip, and her college graduation for another, and her first pregnancy announcement because I was closing our biggest acquisition. Had I been a monster? Building the business while breaking my family? The company had been my husband Cole's dream initially. When cancer took him at 56, I'd promised to keep it thriving. Not just for him, but for Ellie. For our legacy. Somehow, along the way, the promise morphed into an obsession that consumed everything else. I pulled myself together and walked to the ornate desk in the corner of my bedroom. From the bottom drawer, I retrieved a leather-bound journal, my private record of every major decision, every power play, every compromise I'd made over the years. Things Ellie didn't know, things that could save her or destroy her, depending on how she used the information. My phone buzzed with a text from Audrey, my longtime assistant, and perhaps my only true friend after all these years. Victor called an executive meeting for Monday morning. No agenda provided. Should I attend? I looked at myself in the mirror, silver hair perfectly coiffed, designer outfit still immaculate despite my emotional collapse. Behind the makeup and power suits was a woman who'd sacrificed too much for the corner office. A woman who'd taught her daughter ambition, but perhaps not wisdom. "Yes," I texted back. "Attend and record everything. Don't let them know you're still loyal to me." I set the phone down and stared at the family portrait on my nightstand. Cole, Ellie, and me on a rare vacation, all smiling like we had forever. How had it come to this? A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Mom?" Ellie's voice sounded younger suddenly, uncertain. "Are you okay?" I didn't answer immediately. In that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't fight her for the company, not directly. Instead, I would watch. I would wait. And when the inevitable happened, When Victor showed his true colors and my daughter found herself drowning, I would be there. Not to rescue her, but to teach her how to swim with sharks. "I'm fine, dear," I called back. "Just tired. Congratulations on your new position." As her footsteps retreated down the hallway, I opened the journal and began to write my plan. Ellie thought she was taking my company, but she had no idea what she was really inheriting. The enemies I'd made, the corners I'd cut, the delicate alliances I'd forged through decades of hard work. She would learn soon enough. And when she came to me for help, because she would eventually, I wouldn't hug her and make it all better. I would teach her what it truly means to be a strong woman in a world that wants to see you fail. Just then, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I hadn't seen in years, belonging to someone who could unravel everything if they chose to speak up now. Someone who knew where all the bodies were buried. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the screen as my heart pounded in my chest. Whatever happened next would change everything. For me, for Ellie, and for the legacy I'd sacrificed my life to build. I answered the phone with steady hands despite my racing heart. "Sharon Gray," I said, using my full business name out of habit. "It's been a long time, Sharon." The low, gravelly voice of Anthony Wilson filled my ear. My husband's former business partner. The man I'd forced out 15 years ago when I discovered his embezzlement scheme. "What do you want, Anthony?" I kept my voice level, though my mind was racing through possibilities. Had Ellie contacted him? Was this Victor's doing? I heard about the changing of the guard. "Thought I should offer my congratulations." His tone dripped with sarcasm. "Your daughter seems promising. Reminds me of you before power went to your head." I gripped the phone tighter. "If you're calling to threaten me..." "No threats, Sharon. Just a friendly warning. That deal we made back then, the one that kept me quiet and kept you in control, I'm thinking it might be time to renegotiate with the new CEO." My blood ran cold. The deal had involved more than just money to keep Anthony quiet about certain tax irregularities. It had involved falsified documents, a shell company in the Caymans, and the strategic removal of a competitor who had gotten too close to discovering what we'd done. Nothing illegal exactly, but certainly not actions that would look good splashed across the business section of the newspaper. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," I said. "Ellie may be CEO, but I still have influence." Anthony chuckled. "Do you? The board voted unanimously from what I hear. Even your loyal Gerald voted against you. That must have stung." Gerald, my oldest friend on the board. The betrayal was fresh and sharp. "I'll be in touch, Sharon," Anthony continued when I didn't respond. "Give my best to Victor. I always liked him better than your husband anyway." The line went dead, and I sat in stunned silence. So Victor and Anthony were connected. That explained a lot. Numbness gave way to anger, and anger to determination. I picked up my journal again and added Anthony's name to the growing list of players in this chess match. The weekend passed in a strange limbo. Ellie and her family stayed at the house, but we danced around each other like cautious boxers. My grandson Bobby was the only one who acted normally, bringing me drawings and asking for stories about the olden days when I was young. His innocence was a balm to my wounded pride. Monday morning arrived with cruel brightness. I woke early and dressed with particular care. My favorite power suit, the pearl necklace Cole had given me when we'd secured our first $1 million contract, tasteful makeup that concealed the sleepless nights. When I came downstairs, Ellie was already at the breakfast table, dressed in an expensive outfit I recognized from the collection I'd bought her for Christmas. She looked up, surprised. "Mom? I thought you'd sleep in." "Ours some habits die hard," I said, pouring myself coffee. "I've been up at 6 for work every day for 40 years. She shifted uncomfortably. "About that, what are your plans now?" I added cream to my coffee and stirred it slowly, making her wait. "I thought I might travel. See all those places I was always too busy for." The lie came easily. "Maybe write my memoirs." Fear flickered across her face. "Memoirs?" I smiled slightly. "Nothing too revealing, dear. Just my journey as a... What did you call me? A great businesswoman?" Ellie had the grace to look embarrassed. "Mom, I know this transition is difficult, but it's the right move for the company. Fresh ideas, new energy. The board agrees." "The board?" I repeated. Including Victor, of course. Uncle Victor has been incredibly supportive, she said defensively. He's mentoring me through the transition. I'm sure he is, I thought, but didn't say. Instead, I asked, and what does Mark think of all this? Her husband had always struck me as weak-willed but perceptive. He's proud of me, she said too quickly. He's taking time off to help more with Bobby while I get settled in the role. Interesting. Mark stepping back just when Ellie was stepping up. I wondered if that was his idea or Victor's. Well, I said, rising from the table, I won't keep you. I know how important first days are. She looked relieved. Audrey has cleared out your office. Your personal items are being sent here. The casual way she mentioned erasing my presence from the company I'd built stung more than I expected. How thoughtful, I managed. As Ellie gathered her things, her phone buzzed. The color drained from her face as she read the message. What is it? I asked. Nothing, she said too brightly. Just a meeting reminder. But I'd spent decades reading people across negotiating tables. My daughter was scared. Good. Fear sharpens the senses. After she left, I placed a call to Audrey. She's here, Audrey said in a hushed tone. Victor's introduced her to everyone as the future. They've already moved her into your office. And the executive meeting? Starting in 10 minutes. Your suspicions were right. Anthony Wilson is here. My fingers tightened around the phone. Keep your head down, but eyes and ears open. Call me the minute it's over. I spent the morning in my garden, aggressively pruning roses while my mind worked through scenarios. By noon, my hands were scratched and sore, but I had the outline of a plan. Audrey called at 1:43 p.m. It was brutal, she said without preamble. Victor brought Anthony in as a special consultant for international expansion. Ellie looked blindsided. When she questioned why a former partner who left under a cloud was being brought back, Victor smoothly talked about healing old wounds and valuable experience. And the board approved this? They weren't consulted. Victor presented it as a done deal under the new leadership structure. He handles operations. Ellie handles public relations and client relationships. I laughed bitterly. He's sidelining her already. There's more, Audrey continued. They're revisiting the Marshall acquisition from last year. My stomach dropped. The Marshall deal had been complicated, with certain aspects kept deliberately opaque. If they started digging too deeply... Sharon, Audrey's voice dropped even lower. Anthony asked specifically about the Cayman accounts. Ellie had no idea what he was talking about. Of course she didn't. I'd protected her from the messier aspects of building our empire. There's something else, Audrey added reluctantly. Gerald cornered me after the meeting. He said to tell you he's sorry and that he had no choice. His exact words were, "They have leverage over all of us." Leverage. The word hung in the air like a threat. After ending the call, I sat in my garden, surrounded by roses I'd ruthlessly cut back to ensure stronger blooming next season. Sometimes, things had to be stripped down to grow back stronger. I was still sitting there when my phone rang again. Ellie's number. Mom? Her voice was tight with barely controlled panic. I need to talk to you. Not at the house. Somewhere private. The botanical gardens, I said immediately. The Japanese section. 1 hour. I found her on a bench beside the koi pond, her power suit rumpled, her eyes red-rimmed. When she saw me, she stood, then seemed to deflate. I don't understand what's happening, she said. Victor is making decisions without me. Anthony Wilson is suddenly involved. The board members won't look me in the eye. She ran a hand through her hair, messing up its perfect arrangement. Mom, what aren't you telling me about the company? I sat beside her, watching the colorful fish swim in lazy circles. You wanted the throne, Ellie. Did you think it came without thorns? She turned to me, anger flashing through her tears. Don't do that condescending thing. I need your help. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was brilliant, ambitious, and wholly unprepared for the sharks circling her. Help you? I asked softly. Or save you? Is there a difference? She shot back. All the difference in the world, I replied. I reached into my purse and pulled out a USB drive. This contains information about Anthony, Victor, and certain arrangements the company has made over the years. Before I give it to you, I need to know, how far are you willing to go to protect what's yours? Ellie stared at the small device, then back at me. The uncertainty in her eyes hardened into something stronger, a spark of the determination I recognized from my own mirror. Whatever it takes, she said, reaching for the drive. But as her fingers closed around it, my phone buzzed with a text. From Mark. Don't trust Ellie. Victor has recordings. They're coming for you next. I snatched the USB drive back from Ellie's grasp, my mind racing. Mark had never impressed me as particularly cunning, but his warning couldn't be ignored. Mom, Ellie protested, her expression shifting from determination to confusion. What are you doing? Why did Victor really support you taking over? I asked, keeping my voice low despite the privacy of the garden. What did he promise you? Her eyes darted away from mine. He just said it was time for a change, that you were losing your edge. And you believed him? The same man who tried to force your father out before his death? The same man who's been waiting for decades to take control? Ellie's shoulders slumped. He said you'd try to make him the villain. He warned me you'd never accept being replaced. I laughed. A short, bitter sound. Replaced? Ellie, you're being used. Victor needed someone with the gray name, someone the board would accept as my successor, someone he could control. That's not... Then why is Anthony Wilson back? Why are they looking into the Cayman accounts? I leaned closer. Why is Victor making decisions without consulting the CEO? The koi circled in their pond, oblivious to the human drama unfolding beside them. A family with small children wandered into the Japanese garden, their excited voices creating an incongruous backdrop to our tense conversation. Mark sent me a text, I said, showing her my phone. He thinks you're working with Victor against me. Ellie read it, her face paling. That's ridiculous. I just spoke with Mark an hour ago. He didn't mention anything about Victor or recordings. Then why would he send this? She pressed her lips together. I don't know. Maybe Victor has something on Mark too. This caught my attention. What do you mean too? Does Victor have something on you? Her silence was answer enough. Ellie, I said, suddenly feeling every one of my 68 years. What have you done? Tears welled in her eyes. It was 3 years ago. That investment deal in Singapore that almost fell through? I was the one who secured it. I remembered. It had been a crucial expansion, one that had significantly increased our market value. Ellie had led the negotiations and returned triumphant. I'd been so proud. Victor found out that I offered certain incentives to make it happen. Off-the-books arrangements with government officials. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Nothing illegal by Singapore standards, but definitely against company policy. Against your rules. The cold feeling in my stomach intensified. And Victor has proof of this? She nodded miserably. Emails. A recorded conversation. He approached me 6 months ago. Said he would keep it between us if I supported his vision for the company's future, which included you replacing me. He said it was time for you to enjoy retirement, that you'd worked hard enough, that I was ready. She looked up, her eyes pleading. I thought I was protecting the company, protecting you from scandal if it ever came out. I almost laughed at the irony. My daughter thought she was protecting me from scandal, while I had spent decades protecting her from knowing just how many lines I'd crossed to build our empire. Does Mark know about Singapore? No, she said firmly. He knows something's wrong, but not the details. He never approved of how close Victor and I have become. I checked my phone again, rereading Mark's text. Something didn't add up. Where exactly is Mark right now? Ellie frowned. At home with Bobby. I'm supposed to meet them for dinner. I pulled up my messaging app and typed a quick text to Audrey. Need immediate location check on Mark Gray. Audrey had connections with our corporate security team. A discreet inquiry wouldn't raise flags. Mom, what are you thinking? Ellie asked, watching me closely. I'm thinking we need to be very careful about who we trust right now. I stood, brushing off my skirt. Did you drive here? She nodded. Good. Follow me to Riverside Park. We need somewhere even more private to talk. The Riverside Cafe was nearly empty on a Monday afternoon. We chose a table in the far corner, ordered coffee we didn't want, and waited until the server was out of earshot. My phone buzzed with Audrey's response. Security confirms Mark Gray checked in at downtown office building, not at home. Building houses law firm Mason & Wright. I showed Ellie the message. Why would Mark lie about where he is? And why is he meeting with lawyers? Her face crumpled. I don't know. Everything's falling apart so fast. This morning I was CEO, and now I don't know who to trust or what's real anymore. I reached across the table and took her hand. The first real physical contact we'd had in years. Welcome to my world for the past 40 years. Audrey sent another text. Victor called emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Agenda: governance concerns and leadership stability. He's making his move already, I murmured, faster than I expected. What move? What are you talking about? Ellie's voice rose in panic. Victor never wanted you as CEO. He wanted you as a puppet, a stepping stone. My guess is tomorrow's meeting will involve questions about your judgment, perhaps even your Singapore deal. He'll position himself as the steady hand needed to guide the company through troubling times. Ellie's face went white. He promised me. Men like Victor make promises they never intend to keep. I cut in. The question now is what we do about it. My phone rang, Mark's number. I showed Ellie the screen. Answer it, she said. Put it on speaker. I did, keeping my voice neutral. Hello, Mark? Sharon? His voice sounded strained. Is Ellie with you? Why do you ask? I need to talk to both of you. It's important. And it needs to be in person. Ellie leaned toward the phone. Mark, why did you text my mother that I can't be trusted? And why are you at Mason & Wright instead of home with Bobby? There was a pause. How do you... Never mind. I'm trying to help both of you. Victor approached me last week with an offer. Information about what happened to me in exchange for helping him pressure Ellie to step aside. Information about what? Ellie demanded. Another pause. About my gambling debts. The ones I've been hiding from you for 2 years. His voice cracked. The ones Victor somehow found out about and has been using to control me. Ellie's eyes widened with shock, then narrowed with anger. I could almost see her reevaluating her marriage in real time. Where's Bobby? She asked, her voice tight. With your sister. He's fine. I jumped in. What exactly does Victor want from you, Mark? He wants me to testify that Ellie has been making questionable business decisions based on my financial pressure. That she fast-tracked the Singapore deal to help pay off my debts. Ellie gasped. That's a lie. I know, Mark said. That's why I'm at Mason & Wright. I'm meeting with a lawyer friend about how to protect us all from what's coming. I considered this. What's coming, Mark? What else do you know? Victor has been collecting dirt on everyone. Board members, executives, even clients. He's been planning this for years, Sharon. He wants the company, and he'll destroy anyone who stands in his way. The pieces were falling into place. Gerald's cryptic message about leverage, Anthony Wilson's sudden reappearance, the board's unanimous vote against me. Mom? Ellie said, her face set with new determination. I need that USB drive now. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with. I hesitated. The drive contained evidence of decisions I wasn't proud of, decisions I'd never wanted Ellie to know about. But we were past the point of protecting reputations. Mark, I said, meet us at the old boathouse in 2 hours, and come alone. After ending the call, Ellie fixed me with a hard stare. I need to know everything, Mom. All the secrets, all the deals, all the bodies buried. If I'm going to save our company, I can't keep stumbling in the dark. Our company, not my company. For the first time, I saw true understanding in my daughter's eyes, understanding of what it had taken to build what we had, and what it would take to keep it. I slid the USB drive across the table. There are things on here you won't like, things that might change how you see me. She took it, her hand steady now. I'm starting to think I never really saw you at all. The boathouse stood forgotten at the edge of the lake, a relic from a time when Sunday rowing had been fashionable. Cole and I had invested in its restoration years ago as part of a community project, and I still held a key to the private meeting room upstairs. Ellie and I arrived first, climbing the creaking stairs to the wood-paneled room with its view of the water. She'd spent the past hour reviewing the files on the USB drive, her expression growing increasingly grim with each revelation. "The Cayman accounts," she said, as we settled into the dusty chairs. "The tax structures. The competitor who suddenly went bankrupt after threatening to expose our supply chain issues. Business isn't always clean," I said simply. "This goes beyond aggressive tactics, Mom. Some of this borders on what was necessary to survive." I finished for her. "Your father started this company with a loan from a man who expected certain favors in return. From day one, we were navigating gray areas." The door downstairs opened and closed. Footsteps on the stairs. Mark appeared, looking haggard but determined. He crossed to Ellie, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away. 2 years, Mark. 2 years of gambling and lies." He flinched. "I know. I'll make it right somehow." "We don't have time for marital therapy," I interrupted. "Victor's board meeting is tomorrow. What exactly did your lawyer friend advise?" Mark pulled out his phone. "He said our best option is to gather whatever leverage we can against Victor and force a stalemate." He pulled up an email and showed us the screen. He also found something interesting about Anthony Wilson's original departure from the company. I leaned forward to read the email, but before I could make sense of it, a familiar voice spoke from the doorway. "I'm afraid that won't be necessary." We all turned to see Victor standing there, Anthony Wilson slightly behind him. In Victor's hand was a small recorder. "Family reunions are so touching," Victor said with a cold smile, "especially when they're so revealing." Behind them, more footsteps on the stairs. Gerald appeared next, his face a mask of regret. "I'm sorry, Sharon," he said, "but we need to end this now, before everyone gets hurt." The 4 of us sat in uncomfortable silence across from Victor, Anthony, and Gerald. The old boathouse, once a place of quiet retreat, now felt like an interrogation room. "How did you find us?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. Victor smirked, glancing at Mark. "You should really check your devices for tracking apps, Sharon, especially when dealing with someone who has access to your family's phones." Ellie turned to Mark, betrayal etched across her face. "You led them here?" Mark shook his head frantically. "No, I had no idea." "He's telling the truth," Victor interrupted, sounding almost bored. "Mark isn't sophisticated enough for real deception, but his phone has been quite helpful in keeping tabs on both of you. I should have been more careful. Years of corporate espionage and countermeasures, and I'd failed to consider the most basic security risk: family." "What do you want, Victor?" I asked, although I already knew. "The same thing I've wanted since Cole died," he replied, settling into a chair across from us. "What should have been mine from the beginning." "The company was never yours," I said coldly. "Cole built it. I expanded it. You were just along for the ride." Victor's smile vanished. "Cole was my brother. We started with the same opportunities, the same education. But he always got everything. The respect, the success, even you." His eyes narrowed. "Did you ever wonder why he made me vice president instead of giving me my own division to run? It was to keep me under his thumb, dependent on his charity." "That's not true," I said, though I'd often wondered the same thing. Cole had never fully explained his decision to keep Victor so close to the center of power. "It doesn't matter now," Anthony interjected. "What matters is that tomorrow's board meeting will result in a new leadership structure, one that corrects certain historical imbalances." Gerald, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "Sharon, please, there's a simple solution here. A graceful exit for you, a defined role for Ellie that preserves her dignity, and a smooth transition to Victor as CEO." "And if we refuse?" Ellie asked, her voice stronger than I expected. Victor held up the recorder. "Then we release everything, the Singapore bribes, Mark's gambling debts that were covered with company funds. Oh yes, we know about those too. The Cayman accounts, the Marshall deal irregularities. You'll implicate yourself in most of those," I pointed out. "Perhaps," Victor conceded, "but I'm prepared for some collateral damage if it means finally getting what I deserve." I studied my brother-in-law's face, seeing the decades of resentment etched into every line. This wasn't just about the company anymore. This was about settling scores that had festered since before I even entered the picture. "The board won't support you once they know your methods," Ellie said. Anthony laughed. The board will do whatever protects their own interests. And right now, with what Victor has collected on each of them, their interests align perfectly with ours. I thought quickly. If I could get to the board first, reveal Victor's blackmail scheme. But no. Without proof, it would be my word against his, and I was already compromised in their eyes. I need to speak with my daughter alone, I said. Absolutely not, Victor snapped. 5 minutes, I insisted. You have us cornered. At least allow us the dignity of a private conversation before we respond to your demands. Victor considered this, then nodded. 5 minutes. We'll wait downstairs. He stood, gesturing for Anthony and Gerald to follow. Don't try anything foolish, Sharon. The building is watched. Once they'd gone, Ellie turned to Mark. Did you really use company money to cover gambling debts? He looked away. Not exactly. I borrowed against my stock options. Technically legal, but it would look terrible if it came out. We can discuss your poor decisions later, I cut in. Right now, we need to focus. What's your plan? Ellie asked, a spark of hope in her eyes. You always have a plan, Mom. I did, but she wasn't going to like it. Victor believes he has leverage over everyone, I said quietly. But there's something he doesn't know. Something not even on that USB drive. I turned to the ornate grandfather clock that stood against the wall, another relic from the boathouse's glory days. Moving to it, I slid my fingers behind the decorative crest at its top and retrieved a small key. What is that? Mark asked. Insurance, I replied, crossing to a seemingly ordinary panel in the wood-lined wall. The key fit into a nearly invisible lock, revealing a small safe. Ellie watched wide-eyed as I entered a combination and withdrew a sealed envelope. Mom, what have you been hiding? The truth about how Victor's wife died. The shock on their faces would have been almost comical in any other circumstance. Aunt Julie? Ellie whispered. But she died of a heart condition 15 years ago. That's the official story, I confirmed, unsealing the envelope. The reality is more complicated. Inside was a medical report and a series of photographs. Julie looking pale and bruised, dates stamped in the corners. Victor was abusive, I explained, keeping my voice matter-of-fact to control my own emotions. Julie came to me a month before she died, afraid for her life. I helped her document the abuse, connected her with a lawyer, arranged for her to leave him. But she never left, Mark said, confusion evident in his voice. Because she died before she could. I spread the photos on the table. The night before she planned to go, she had a fatal heart attack. The doctors attributed it to her pre-existing condition, but the timing was convenient. You think Victor killed her? Ellie gasped. I don't know, I admitted. But these photos, her sworn statement, the timeline, it would raise enough questions to destroy him publicly, regardless of what happened that night. Why didn't you use this before? Ellie demanded. All these years, if you suspected. Because your father asked me not to, I said simply. Cole couldn't bear the thought of his brother being a murderer, even with the evidence staring him in the face. He made me promise to keep Julie's documentation hidden unless there was no other choice. And now? Mark asked. Now, we have no other choice. I gathered the papers and photos. This won't just cost Victor the company. It will likely send him to prison for domestic abuse at minimum, and prompt a reopened investigation into Julie's death at worst. Ellie stared at the photos, horror and disgust replacing her earlier shock. All these years, family holidays, company events, and he was this monster beneath the surface. People rarely show their true faces, I said. Even to family, perhaps especially to family. Footsteps on the stairs signaled Victor's impatience. I quickly put the documents back in the envelope and handed it to Ellie. Whatever happens next, I need you to remain calm, I instructed her. Follow my lead. The door opened and Victor strode in, Anthony and Gerald trailing behind him. Time's up, he announced. What's your decision, Sharon? The easy way or the hard way? I stood straight, channeling every ounce of the authority I'd cultivated over decades in boardrooms and negotiations. Neither, I said. We have a counter-proposal. Victor's expression darkened. You're not in a position to make proposals. Everyone is always in a position to negotiate, Victor. You taught me that. I nodded to Ellie, who stepped forward with the envelope. What's this? Victor asked, suspicious. Open it, I suggested. Unless you'd prefer I shared the contents with the board first. He snatched the envelope, his confidence wavering for the first time. As he pulled out the photos, his face went through a series of transformations: confusion, recognition, shock, and finally, rage. Where did you get these? He hissed, his knuckles white around Julie's images. She came to me, I said simply. She trusted me to help her escape you. These prove nothing. But his voice had lost its certainty. He turned to Anthony and Gerald. This is a desperate fabrication. Gerald stepped forward, taking one of the photos. His face paled as he studied it. Julie's dress. This was taken the night of the company's 20th anniversary gala. I remember because she left early, said she wasn't feeling well. After you cornered her in the hallway and twisted her arm, I added, watching Victor carefully. She showed me the bruises the next day. Victor's eyes darted between us, calculating his options. You've kept this for 15 years. Why use it now unless you're desperate? It's your word against mine about what these photos really show. It's Julie's word, actually, I corrected him, nodding to the medical report still in the envelope. Her sworn statement, her medical documentation, her timeline of the abuse. And there are copies, Victor. Multiple copies, in multiple locations. Anthony stepped back, distancing himself from Victor both physically and symbolically. You didn't mention anything about this, Victor. Because it's not true, Victor snarled, but the desperation in his voice betrayed him. It doesn't need to be proven beyond a doubt, I explained calmly. It just needs to raise enough questions to consume you in investigations and scandal. The board hates scandal more than anything. Gerald looked from Victor to me, then to the photos still scattered on the table. I need to make some calls. He headed for the door without waiting for a response. Victor lunged forward suddenly, grabbing my arm with bruising force. You manipulative bitch. You've been planning this all along. Let her go, Ellie shouted, moving toward us, but Mark held her back. I've been protecting you all along, I corrected Victor, not struggling against his grip. For Cole's sake, for the family's sake. That protection ends today. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. For a moment I thought he might strike me, proving every accusation in those photos true in real time. Victor, Anthony warned, think carefully about your next move. The tension stretched between us like a wire about to snap. Then, abruptly, Victor released me and stepped back. This isn't over, he said, his voice deadly calm now. You think you've won? You have no idea what's coming for you next. As Victor stormed out, Anthony lingered, looking uncomfortable. Sharon, for what it's worth, I never knew about Julie, about any of this. Would it have mattered? I asked. He couldn't meet my eyes. Probably not. Business is business. Exactly, I agreed. And now our business is concluded. I expect your resignation from any consulting role by morning. After Anthony left, the three of us stood in stunned silence for several moments, processing what had just happened. Will this really stop him? Ellie finally asked. Temporarily, I said, rubbing my arm where Victor's fingers had left marks. But Victor won't give up easily, and his threat wasn't empty. We don't know what else he might have planned. Mark began gathering the scattered photos. What do we do now? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw not just the ambitious executive who had tried to take my place, but a woman beginning to understand the true cost of power. Now, I said, we prepare for war. Ellie nodded, a new resolve hardening her features. I'll call an emergency executive session before tomorrow's board meeting. We need to get ahead of whatever Victor's planning. And I'll contact our security team, Mark added, some of his confidence returning. Make sure all our systems and devices are clean. As they discussed next steps, my phone buzzed with a text from Audrey. Unknown delivery arrived at your house. Security protocol activated. A chill ran through me. Victor's parting words echoed in my mind. You have no idea what's coming for you next. We need to go, I interrupted Ellie and Mark's planning. Now. Something's happening at the house. Ellie looked alarmed. Bobby's with my sister. Do you think? I don't know, I said, already heading for the door. But I'm not taking any chances. As we hurried down the stairs, I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd won the battle, but not the war. Victor had spent years collecting leverage on everyone around him. The photos of Julie had surprised him, but a man like Victor always had contingency plans, and something told me we were about to discover exactly what those plans entailed. We broke several speed limits racing back to my house. Ellie called her sister repeatedly, finally getting confirmation that Bobby was safe and unaware of any drama unfolding. At least Victor hadn't stooped to threatening my grandson, yet. As we approached my neighborhood, the normally quiet street was bustling with activity. A police car sat in my driveway, lights flashing. 2 officers stood on my porch speaking with Audrey, who had obviously rushed over. My security guard Davis was inspecting a package on the front steps, wearing gloves and looking grim. "What the hell is going on?" Ellie murmured as we pulled up. We hurried from the car to where Audrey stood, her face pale with worry. "Sharon, thank God," she said when she saw me. The security system alerted me when the package arrived. Given the timing and everything happening with Victor, I called the police as a precaution. One of the officers stepped forward. "Mrs. Gray? I'm Officer Chen. We responded to a suspicious package report. Your security team has been extremely cautious, which is good, but we need to ask you some questions." "Of course," I said, my eyes fixed on the package that Davis was still examining. It was a simple cardboard box, medium-sized, with my name and address handwritten on the label. No return address. "Do you have any idea who might have sent this?" Officer Chen asked. "My brother-in-law, Victor Gray," I said without hesitation. "We've had a business disagreement today that became heated." The officer raised his eyebrows but made a note. "And do you have reason to believe he would send you something dangerous?" I glanced at Ellie, who nodded slightly. "No more secrets," her expression seemed to say. "No more protection for Victor." "Yes," I told the officer. "He made threats against me earlier today. Physical threats." Davis approached us, still wearing the gloves. "Mrs. Gray, it's not explosive or hazardous as far as I can tell. It contains paper documents and what appears to be old photographs." My stomach dropped. "More leverage? Or something else entirely?" "Let me see," I insisted. "Ma'am, we should process this properly first," Officer Chen began, but I was already moving toward the box. "It's addressed to me," I said firmly, "and I believe I know what it contains." Davis handed me the open box. Inside were yellowed folders, old photos, and a single sheet of paper on top with Victor's handwriting. "You're not the only one with secrets, Sharon. Cole had his own insurance policy. Perhaps you should ask yourself why." With trembling fingers, I lifted the top photograph. It showed Cole, younger, perhaps in his 30s, shaking hands with a man I recognized all too well. Antonio Mancini, a business figure with known mob connections who had mysteriously backed away from our industry shortly after our company began to expand. The next photo showed Cole and Antonio in what appeared to be a heated discussion in a restaurant I didn't recognize. The third showed them with several other men around a table covered with documents and cash. "Mom?" Ellie's voice broke through my shock. "What are those?" I couldn't speak. Beneath the photos were bank statements, transaction records, old contracts, all documenting connections I had never known about, decisions Cole had made before we were married, deals that crossed lines I had always believed he would never cross. "Sharon," Audrey whispered, looking over my shoulder. "Is that evidence that my husband, your father," I said to Ellie, my voice strangely calm, "built the foundation of our company with money from organized crime?" Ellie took the photos from me, her face a mask of disbelief. "This can't be real. Dad was good, honest." Mark looked at the documents with a banker's trained eye. "These seem authentic. The dates align with the company's early expansion." The officers exchanged looks. "Ma'am, if those documents indicate illegal activity, we may need to—" "These are very old records," I interrupted smoothly, gathering the materials back into the box. "Any statute of limitations would have expired decades ago, and my husband has been dead for 12 years. Nevertheless," I appreciate your concern, officers, I continued, summoning every ounce of the authority I'd cultivated over my career. But this is a family matter involving the early history of a private company. There's no current threat here, just an attempt by my brother-in-law to cause emotional distress during a corporate power struggle. Officer Chen looked unconvinced but didn't push further. We'll need to file a report about the suspicious package call, but the contents are yours to keep, Mrs. Gray. After they left, the four of us stood in my living room, the box of Cole's secrets sitting on the coffee table like a bomb that had already detonated, leaving us to assess the damage. Did you know? Ellie asked finally, her voice small. About Dad's connections? I sank into my armchair, suddenly feeling every one of my 68 years. No, not specifically. I knew Cole had secured unusual financing in the early days before we met. He never shared the details, and I never pressed. Willful ignorance? Mark said, not unkindly. Call it what you will, I agreed. Cole was determined to build something legitimate, something that would last. I focused on looking forward, not backward. Audrey, who had been quietly examining some of the documents, looked up. Victor must have had these for years. Why use them now? Because he was saving them for when he had nothing left to lose, I said. He knew these wouldn't just hurt me. They'd tarnish Cole's legacy forever. Ellie paced the room, processing. So Dad built our company with mob money, and you built it with offshore accounts and corporate manipulation. The Gray Empire is rotten at its core. Every empire has darkness in its foundations, Ellie, I said wearily. The question is what we build on top of that foundation. She stopped pacing to look at me directly. And what exactly have we built, Mom? A company where the board can be blackmailed? Where the VPs use company funds to pay gambling debts? Where bribes are standard operating procedure? I had no easy answer. She wasn't wrong. We've built a company that employs thousands of people, I said finally. That's developed products that genuinely improve lives. That's outlasted all of its early competitors. At what cost? She pressed. At every cost, I admitted. That's what you're learning now, what I hoped you wouldn't have to learn the way I did. Power demands payment. Success requires sacrifice. Mark, who had been quiet for some time, spoke up. We need to decide what we're doing about the board meeting tomorrow. Victor may have been neutralized with the Julie evidence, but he clearly planned to destroy the company's reputation if he couldn't control it. The board will be in chaos, Audrey added. Gerald is probably already making calls, spreading the news about Victor. Ellie suddenly stopped, a new determination in her eyes. No, we're not going to let this descend into chaos. We're going to take control of the narrative. I looked at my daughter with newfound respect. What do you suggest? The truth, she said simply. Or at least a strategic version of it. We get ahead of Victor, address the board together, and lay out a new path forward. She turned to me. You were right about Victor using me as a puppet. I wasn't ready to lead the company, not really. I didn't understand what it takes. And now? I asked. Now I know too much to be innocent, but not enough to be effective, she said with surprising self-awareness. I need a mentor, not a rival. I felt a surge of pride that nearly brought tears to my eyes. After decades of putting the company before our relationship, was it possible that the very crisis threatening to destroy everything could actually heal the rift between us? What exactly are you proposing? I asked carefully. Ellie sat down across from me. A partnership. Co-CEOs. You handle the old guard and teach me what I need to know. I bring in fresh perspectives and prepare for the future. Together, we clean house. Starting with Victor, but not ending there. Mark nodded slowly. It could work. The board would accept it as a compromise, especially with the threat of scandal looming. But, Ellie continued, her voice firmer now, there need to be conditions. No more offshore accounts. No more bribes. No more leverage and blackmail. We build a new foundation, even if it means slower growth. I studied my daughter, really looked at her. In her eyes, I saw Cole's ambition, but also a moral clarity that neither of us had fully embraced. She wanted power, yes, but power with purpose. You'll lose some of your edge in this business, I warned her. Some deals won't happen. Some competitors will take advantage. Then we'll find other advantages, she countered. Legitimate ones. If we're as smart as we think we are, we don't need to cheat to win. I thought about Cole, what he had wanted for the company, for our daughter, for our legacy. Despite his early compromises, he had always pushed for legitimacy, for respectability. Perhaps this was the culmination of that vision, not its betrayal. Okay, I said finally. Partners. Ellie looked almost surprised at my acquiescence. Really? Don't look so shocked, I chuckled. I've spent 40 years adapting to survive. This is just the next adaptation. She smiled, a real smile that reminded me of the little girl who used to follow me around the office. Audrey cleared her throat. I hate to interrupt this touching moment, but we still have Victor to deal with. He won't go quietly, even with the Julie evidence. No, he won't, I agreed. But together, we can handle Victor. We've already neutralized Anthony and Gerald. And the board? Mark asked. We'll follow strength and stability, I said confidently. We present a united front, acknowledge past mistakes without dwelling on them, and outline our vision for reform. Most importantly, we make it clear that challenging us means risking their own secrets coming to light. Ellie raised an eyebrow. I thought we were turning over a new leaf. That sounds like more of the same. Evolution, not revolution, I corrected her. We can't change everything overnight, but we can start. 6 months later, I stood at the podium at our company's annual leadership conference, preparing to introduce Ellie. The audience of executives, managers, and board members watched with a mixture of respect and wariness. Exactly as it should be. Victor was gone, forced into retirement with a carefully worded separation agreement that kept Julie's abuse private, but made it clear what leverage we held. Anthony had disappeared back into the consulting world. Gerald had surprised us all by becoming one of our strongest allies in the boardroom, perhaps seeking redemption for his earlier betrayal. It has been my privilege to lead this company through decades of growth and change, I said to the assembled crowd. Through challenges and triumphs, through economic upheavals and market transformations. But no period has made me prouder than these past 6 months, as we've embraced a new vision for what corporate leadership can be. I spotted Ellie in the wings waiting for her cue. She looked confident, poised, ready. The future belongs to those who can balance ambition with integrity, profit with purpose, I continued. And I am delighted to share that journey with the most formidable business partner I've ever had, who happens also to be the person I'm most proud of in this world. As Ellie walked onto the stage to enthusiastic applause, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The company wasn't mine anymore, nor was it hers. It was ours, not just Ellie's and mine, but every person's who worked to make it successful. She took her place beside me at the podium, and we faced the audience together. 6 months ago, Ellie began. I thought I knew what power was. I thought I understood business. I was wrong. A ripple of surprise moved through the crowd. My mother taught me, sometimes through hard lessons, that true leadership isn't about control or dominance. It's about responsibility. To our employees, our customers, our communities, and yes, to our own values. I watched her speak with natural authority and genuine conviction. She would never be a perfect leader. No one is. But she would be a better one than I had been. And together, we would build something that could outlast both of us. Later, at the reception, as we moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and answering questions, Ellie leaned over to whisper in my ear, I found something in Dad's old files yesterday. A letter he wrote to me before he died, meant to be delivered when I became CEO. My heart skipped. What did it say? She smiled, a complex mixture of emotions playing across her face. That the company wasn't his greatest legacy. His greatest legacy was me finding my own path. I thought of Cole, his early compromises, his lifelong drive to build something meaningful, his love for our daughter. He would be proud of you, I said softly. Even prouder than I am. I think, Ellie replied, taking my hand and squeezing it gently. He would be proud of both of us. As we turned back to our guests, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The betrayals and revelations, the secrets and lies, the moments of raw truth that had finally allowed us to see each other clearly. My name is Sharon Gray. I built an empire with compromised foundations, ruled it with an iron will, and nearly lost everything that truly mattered in the process. But now, at 68, I've found something I never expected: a second chance to get it right. Not by erasing the past, but by using it to build a better future. When my daughter took over my company at Thanksgiving dinner, she thought she was claiming my throne. She didn't realize she was accepting my greatest gift, the opportunity to learn from my mistakes and create something stronger than I ever could alone. Success had never really embraced me. But watching Ellie now, confident, principled, determined, I believed it might finally embrace us both.